2, and 1.
Oh wait, this is the pre-show, guys. We're ahead early, so this is a reward for all you folks that have just been hanging out here, waiting for this thing to start. And I thought, you know what, we could just, since I'm ready, we could start now, and then we'll start the real show at 4 o'clock. So, welcome to the pre-show, live at the Nutmeg Tavern for all you folks that have come in early. We had a few questions, and I thought, you know, we'll start off with those. So at the pre-show, yes, welcome on into the Nutmeg Tavern. This is ahead of hours, so obviously, you know, the bar isn't necessarily open the same way, but that's all right. Nobody's going to pay attention, so you can come in early. And I am seconded today by a special group. You won't see them behind on the other side of the time vortex, but Ivy is running the console and Lauren is on the questions and super chat. So it'd be nice to them over there in on the other side of the time vortex. I'm your host, John Townsend. We're going to be talking about 18th century things, and this is the pre-show show. The question was, what was the question, Lauren?
Okay, let me find it. Hold on just a sec. Okay. Could you talk a little bit about ship travel from Europe to America in the 1700s, cost, and how long the trip would last? Thank you.
Yeah, so how much does it cost to travel from Great Britain or any place in Europe to North America, and how much does it cost? So things are changing throughout the time period, obviously, with the time, and it depends on the season. You know, some seasons you don't want to necessarily travel from one side to the other, and it can take quite a while. I think the shortest it's going to take is something like on the outside of 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. That's a very quick and easy passage, and there are some passages that are just horrific. If your ship gets damaged, whatever on the way, or you run into particularly bad weather, or it's the wrong season, it can take a lot longer. 3 months, easy, maybe even a lot more than that. And it can be just terrible. And cost-wise, just to get an idea, again, we can have a hard time judging what's going on with the cost of a piece like that, because money doesn't mean the same thing it did, you know, does now as to when it did then. We can judge things by a commodity price, like what was the price of gold at the time, what was the price of gold now, and, you know, sort of get the prices in where we can understand them. Even that doesn't work out so well. I think one of the interesting ways that you can get an idea of the cost is by indentured servitude of the time period. So someone is in Great Britain or in some part of Europe. They don't have any money, but they want to travel to the New World. So they're willing to sell their services into the future, plus room and board. So imagine you're willing to give away 3 years, 5 years, up to 7 years of your life. Yes, the person on the other side is going to feed you and clothe you during that time, but you don't have any choice about where you're working or what you're doing. But that's kind of the cost. So if we could think of, you know, a low-end, you know, laborer today, maybe even, you know, some of these people were skilled, so they might not have to work as much. But even somebody who's fairly skilled, somebody, let's say, you know, the equivalent of an electrician or a plumber today, they might be willing to sell their labor into the future for 3 years. That's a lot of money. So it's fairly expensive to travel back and forth if we're using that as a gauge as to how much it costs. So yeah, the trip is, you know, somebody moving you that distance and also feeding you for that amount of time, keeping you safe for that amount of time. There's a lot of infrastructure there. We don't think about the infrastructure when we're traveling today. We get on an airliner when we fly to Great Britain, right? So the equivalent. There's a ton of infrastructure underneath that. It's amazing that we can travel that far, that quickly, at the price that we pay for the massive quantity of infrastructure and the safety at which we're able to do that. Same things happening in the 18th century. they got to run that ship. They got to have all those sailors, and the ship might not make it to the other side. So there's a lot to think about. It's pretty amazing how things work today compared to the way they were working in the 18th century. That was a long answer to a short question.
Would you like the next question?
Sure.
Somebody was wondering how buying honey or herbs or spices would have kind of worked in the 18th century.
So honey, spices, and herbs. Well, specifically honey and herbs. Those are we're talking about items that are in the local economy. And it's quite likely that those sorts of items are being moved inside of a local economy in a completely bartering kind of manner. Possibly, a semi-barter situation where there's a sort of a general store type person who keeps a lot of different things, and he'll buy items from the local economy and sell them back into the local economy. So, maybe you have honey and it's like, well, I'm going to trade that into my local store for so much credit and take home other items. And then somebody else local will come and purchase that honey. Or, that might happen just as in a person-to-person situation. And that's happening a lot. You can get a lot of that idea from either, Martha Ballard's diary, where she's doing a lot of those kinds of local bartering situations, and the diary of Matthew Patton. So Martha Ballard's in Maine and in the late 18th century, and the Matthew Patton is in New Hampshire. But very, very similar circumstances where you can see all sorts of small interactions, small commercial interactions happening with local produce. People with fish that they're trapping in the local river, or produce from their gardens, or even their services. So Matthew Patton is bartering his services, that of something like a legal clerk, almost lawyer, sometimes surveyor, and Martha Ballard, who's trading her services as a midwife into the community. And those are both very, very interesting sort of community commerce barter situations. We even kind of touched on that in a episode that we've done here. I don't know. My time runs pretty quickly, but a couple of months ago, where I talking about what kind of service can you be into your community if you were living in an 18th century kind of situation. We think about how would we survive? Where would we get the things we need? Instead of kind of flip that on its head, if we were in that community, what would we provide to our neighbors? What were the kinds of things we could do? Well, those are the types of things. Honey and herbs that you would collect, sort of wild crafting. Maybe you make some small thing that you like, brooms, or all kinds of interesting little things. Everybody needs these things in an 18th century community. We don't think about them much today because they're rather kind of low-level items, but those are the things we actually need to survive sometimes, and not something complicated that we have today, like a cell phone, which we don't actually need, and kind of survive for hundreds and thousands of years without them.
I'm wondering how the sound is sounding to everybody and how the volume is. I know it's a little quiet for some people, so I'm just wondering how it's sounding for everyone else.
So Ivy, you might want to check, make sure those levels, especially on that, are all the way up, and just keep pushing those levers if you need to do that. And if we need to, we can kind of pop into a standby phase. I'll run over there and
wrestle with them.
Hit the equipment with a hammer if I need to, because that's really the only way to fix anything.
Okay. It's okay for some people and still too quiet for others, so.
Okay.
It's about as turned up as it can get, so.
Let me read to you, since we're still in the pre-show. We don't start for a little bit. And today, we're going to be shopping today. We're going to have a fun. Lawrence picked out a bunch of great images for shopping. But I was here in the Domestic Coffee Man, which is showing the true way of preparing and making chocolate coffee and tea. And there's always fun recipes in some of these. And this one is Scurvy Grass Ale. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about ale, but you have in the Domestic Coffee Man, they will have a Scurvy Grass Ale. We get a cue right ahead on Scurvy Grass. We know this is for healing. I hope so, or for poisoning somebody. Anyway, take senna, half a pound, rhubarb, 1 ounce and a half, polypody of oak. I believe that is some kind of a fungus. Winter cinnamon, 5 ounces, bayberry aniseed of each 3 ounces, sweet fennel seed, juniper berries, 2 ounces, horseradish, licorice. Horseradish, licorice of each 3 ounces. I was thinking, what the heck is horseradish licorice? I want to know what that is. Not really. 3 ounces, 12 Seville, it's spelled civil here, Seville oranges. Cut them into pieces. Put the ingredients in with a stone in a bag. So you put all those things in a bag, you put a rock in there with it, and you sink it to the bottom of 6 gallons of new ale. This sounds interesting. Then take 1 quart of a juice of scurvy grass, which I'm not sure what scurvy grass is. I've never run into that. I mean, I've read about it, but I don't know that it grows around here. Clarify it over the fire when cold. Put it in the ale and tun them. So I think they mean just leave them in the barrel. Let them work together 24 hours. Then stop the vessel close. After 4 or 6 days, not 5, tap it. The usual draft is a pint warm in the morning, fasting, more or less according as it works. If it doesn't work, just keep drinking it. The vessel, when the vessel is out, you may fill with ale and fresh oranges once more. I think we need to try something like that. Probably cures what ails you, but it doesn't necessarily say what, it's like, you just keep drinking this until it's good for you. There we go. That's Scurvy Grass Ale. Now, Punch Royale. We've done Punch on the episode or on the live stream before. Take brandy 1 quart and a half a pint of spring water, a quart. No. Take brandy 1 quart and a half a pint. Spring water, a quart. You got to find the commas in these or else you'll get all mixed up. Lemon juice, a pint. Loaf sugar, a pound. Mix them together. This composition is a noble cordial. And all other punch whatever, notwithstanding the strength, affects not the head so much as the smaller sort of punch does. For the lemon juice in this being 4 times as much as in the same quantity of small punch, it more powerfully affects the volatile spirits of brandy, chaining it as it were down, for which reason it is more grateful and comfortable to the stomach, nor can it so easily ascend into the head, which you don't want to happen, and cause intoxications as small punch does. I'm not sure if that would hold out today. Just darn good stuff in here. Well, I have to, maybe we'll do Scurvy Grass sometime for the 18th Century Cooking episode, don't you think? I think Scurvy Grass would be great. So how are we doing on our audio? You think we're okay?
It seems to be working okay for most people. It's still a little quiet for some people.
Okay.
And it's bumped up as high as it'll go. So.
Okay. Since we're going to start here in just 1 minute, I'm going to go to card and mute the audio. I'm going to dive through the time vortex, painful as it is. Look at that for a second and I'll be right back. Okay? Can you go to there we go. Test 1, 2. There you go. And But I'm live?
You are
already?
live.
I'm live again? Hold on. Wait a minute, guys. Nobody told me. Nobody gave me the clocking there.
go.
So our audio's working, everything?
Okay.
Welcome. Yes.
Do you want to tell people that we were a little early?
We were early. Yes. Okay. Welcome to the Nutmeg Tavern. I am your host, John Townsend, and we are live here. It's Friday, it's 4 o'clock, and we try to do this every Friday at 4 o'clock whenever possible, and we decided since this was pseudo a holiday for us, we would do it anyway. And since we were prepared early, we came in for a pre-show. So if you missed the pre-show, well, you can see it in the rerun. You didn't miss that much, but we were having fun anyway. And thank you for joining us here for this special edition of the Nutmeg Tavern. Everything's looking good on the audio land. Good. Everything seems to be functional. We have nutmeg in the tea. Normally, I would be joined by my sometimes co-host, or whatever you want to call him, barkeep, Ryan, but he's not here. He's on vacation. And normally, on the other side of the time vortex would be Aaron on the console. No. Ivy's on the console. No, you can't see her. She's not going to turn on the thing. She'll say hi, maybe. Can you hear her?
Hi, I guess.
There
Hi,
we go.
everybody.
And also on the questions today is Lauren. So we got a whole different kind of crew on the other side of the time vortex. So bear with them and be kind. We have a fun little topic today on the live stream, which is shopping, because it's Black Friday and we're all going to be running out shopping. Not me, because I'm here doing the live stream, but maybe you've been shopping today, maybe not. I don't know if Black Fridays is as popular as it was, a decade ago when everybody was, rioting at Walmart and trying to get the big screen TVs. But regardless, shopping is a fun topic, and it gets to be this time of year and people like to think about shopping. So we're going to be talking about shopping in the 18th century with images of shopping and thinking about it, listening with our 18th century ears of what it would be like on the street in the 18th century and what that was like. Maybe we can get an idea, just a little bit of an idea. Maybe we think about a Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens or something like that, and we can kind of get a little bit of an idea. That's 19th century, just what it was like in the 18th century. It's a fun little experiment. If you are interested in anything Nutmeg Tavern or Townsends for Christmas, boy, do it now if you want to try to get it. We do have some things like Nutmeg Tavern mugs available. We have some of these, the Needs More Nutmeg mugs available, and lots of stuff on the website. You'll find the link down in the description section of this video. And also, if you're interested in a gift that's kind of a little different, you can give the gift of Townsends Plus somehow. I think there's a way to do that. I'll have to think about that. If you can't figure out how to do that, you can email us and we'll figure out something for Townsends Plus, because that's another one of those great ways. Some fun thing to give somebody when you don't know what to give them. It's like you've already bought them one too many packages of chocolate or whatever. Is there anything else? Oh, yeah, let's see. The video that was last up was, pumpkin pie, and it's done really, really well. I like making pumpkin pie. I like pumpkin pie a lot, and that was a fun episode to do. We do have a video coming up on Saturday, so tomorrow, watch for a special piece of video content. You'll enjoy that one. I think that one's definitely just a little different. And I'm working on a bunch of experimental ideas for the channel. They're really weird. I don't know how they're going to turn out. We'll just see. We'll just see what happens with the channel. Did you have some super chats that you wanted to start off with?
Yes, let me grab those. Hold on. Okay. All right. So, Dossman says, was there much regular interaction, trade, etc. between the common British and the French populations of North America in the 18th century?
So, trade between sort of intercolony trade, specifically wholly different cultures. So, for a while there, Canada is French. There are French holdings down in the West Indies. There's some Spanish holdings. There are British holdings within North America. What's going on with the trade within them? And there certainly is trade going on back and forth. Sometimes that's discouraged, or sometimes that's called smuggling. But yes, those sorts of trade, that sort of trade is going on, but it definitely has to be sort of either within certain, legal bounds or extra legal bounds in the time period. Maybe not quite so free as what we would expect today, but yes, certainly that trade is going on. I don't know to kind of the amount extent, and especially since smuggling, nobody writes down, we don't have a really good idea about how much smuggling was going on.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Datslav Act, Matt and Carrie says, yay, finally made a live stream again. And of course, this is a great day for people because more people would be able to make it.
Sure.
And then Ryan Wallace says, you guys are awesome. I love the wholesomeness. It has always given me something to watch to cheer me up.
Thank you so much. We do have a lot of fun doing I have a lot of fun doing the kind of thing we do. I'm not sure that people get a chance to do this sort of thing, I guess. I really don't think about that very often, but it's kind of, interesting. So thank you for your support in that way, both the support in a just a morale sense and a material sense. So thank you.
And then Dustin Williams sends in, happy Thanksgiving. Love today's hat selection.
Yeah.
And do you want to kind of give people a rundown on your
Sure.
choice of clothing today?
Sure. So today, a lot of the images are stretching into the late 18th century and early 19th century. And because of that, we went with the early 19th century garb. So this is a top hat that is good from probably about 1800, 1805 up into 1820, when top hats start to sort of change their shape a little bit. And then we have the tail coat here with double-breasted. That is, again, that was good for, say, 1805 up to 1820. Good, really good for 1812 or so. And this, got the the white high collar shirt on and everything. So you got to look the part. I just stopped talking already.
Sorry. Okay, so the next question is, actually, here's a question. What about the calendar this year?
Yeah, what about the calendar this year? Good question. You probably know more about it than I do.
I don't know if we've heard a time frame on it.
The calendar is going to happen, but it's going to happen as an item that you will be able to order. And because there's a paper shortage, and you may not know about it, but yes, there's a paper shortage within the sort of, especially the advertising industry. So this year we were going to do a Christmas flyer. It was like, woo! We talked to and they're like, no, we can't get paper for you. Sorry. It might happen, but it would happen. And by the time people got it, it would be past the holidays. And so we said, okay, we're going to change our plan. If you're expecting something to remind you to order something from Townsends, you're not going to get it because paper shortage. So you're just going to have to remember on your own, and we'll try to remind you in videos and emails. So calendars, yes, but it's not, it's more geared toward the very beginning of the year. So we'll probably start to see the calendars being available into somewhere in December or I don't know, something like that. We're working on it. I'll say it like that. We're working on it.
Do we ever use sorghum in the recipes?
No, sorghum is not something I have seen reference to specifically within the English cookbooks or the American cookbooks of the early 18th century and early 19th century. It probably is something that kind of pops into more popularity into the 19th century. And the trick is, a lot of these things, they show up in cookery in real life earlier than they do in the cookbooks. And so it takes a while. So sorghum might have been being used in the late 18th century, but it doesn't show up in a cookbook and them talking about it until 20 or 30 years later.
Somebody was wondering about powder and shot, whether it was produced locally or whether they purchased it more from more shops and that kind of thing.
So powder and shot, or maybe they mean just ammunition of any sort, gunpowder and any sort of, bullets or whatever. So those kinds of materials are not available. So, you can't really, unless you have, access to sulfur and charcoal and sodium nitrate, or potassium nitrate, you don't have the ingredients to make powder. So that's really being made in very specific places, and you probably have to even then import different components of it. So if you have a gunpowder factory, I might have access easily enough to charcoal, but I need to import sulfur from someplace, or I need to import the niter. So those things are. Those are going to be made in particular locations and then shipped out. And the same thing, lead. Either you have lead mines or you don't, and most places don't have lead mine, but you may buy larger, pieces, components, like I buy bars of lead and then make, the shot or the bullets in a particular location. So there's apparently the Lewis and Clark, they had gunpowder that came in lead canisters or lead envelopes, and then you could take the gunpowder out and then turn the lead envelopes that the powder came into bullets. A really nice way of doing that, so you could transport them together and they protect each other and fun stuff like that.
Somebody was asking, they're saying a lot of our pottery's out of stock. Will we be getting more in?
Yes, more pottery, more things are coming in stock or out of stock. All the time. So you got to check on the website, and we try to keep up with, so the items will sometimes disappear from the website, depending on how long we think it will take to get them in the future. We think they're going to be coming, fairly shortly. They're on the website, and it says notify me. So definitely use that if you want something, but it says it's not in stock. And then sometimes you can, order things even though they're not in stock, and then they'll back order that for you. So check the website. Pottery came in just today from some suppliers, and we expect some more pieces like these pieces, although I don't think we're out of these right now. More of those are coming in. So we've got the craftsmen that we use that are making things for us. They're working all the time.
Somebody wanted to know if your hat was beaver or rabbit.
Yeah, all the fur felt hats that we have are rabbit fur. So not beaver fur. Those are getting really expensive and kind of can be difficult to find, at least the blanks that we need to turn them into the hats that we have.
Okay, 2 super chats. John Talley writes in and says, were there butcher shops that people in the city could go to? Was the meat butchered and immediately sold? And if not, how would they keep it fresh?
John Talley, hold your question. Hold your question, and we will deal with that shortly.
We will. And then Speed and Style Tony says, did retailers in the 18th century have sales, Black Friday, clearance, going out of business, etc.?
Yes. I don't know that I have any particular references here that I have already noted. But there are situations where shiploads of things will come in, and it's like, quick, come in. We're getting rid of this stuff in a hurry. So we have sales going on. Their advertising is different than our advertising, but certainly things are like that are happening within the time period. So sometimes people will be going out of business, or they'll be moving their business and they want to, kind of, let's get rid of this stock and get new stock in. It's a new location, or they'll have whole shiploads of fun stuff coming in. They might have auction sales. They might have, low price kind of opportunities. So yeah.
Okay, are you ready to
Yeah,
start the
I'm going to start
slideshow?
off since we're in shopping.
you're gonna
Yes.
do that.
So you're done with the super chats for now. Let's do a little bit of shopping in the newspaper advertisements of the time period, and I'll do just a couple here, and then we'll go into some images. Let me see here. So watches are, say, the high-end cell phone of the day. So in the 18th century, if you wanted to show off, I've got the newest cool gadget, what you probably had in your pocket was a watch. And watches come in all sorts of flavors and expenses, right? So, Mr. P. Badolet, watchmaker at number 101 Pearl Street, has just received from Geneva a superb assortment of watches, gold, polished, enameled, and set in pearls of most beautiful and modern fashions, as they are drawn directly from the manufacturer. He is enabled to dispose of them at very moderate prices. He warrants all watches sold or repaired by him for 1 year, especially repeaters, which he has made his particular study, and hopes to give those who honor him with their confidence the most perfect satisfaction. This was an advertisement in 1796, and all of these advertisements are in New York City. People said I couldn't read all the ones on this one, so I'll have to skip over some of these. Musical clocks. Now, some of these might be clocks. Some of these might just be musical clockwork toys. And again, this is 18th century. To the admirers of genius, Kirchner and Paff have just landed and exposed for view and sale at number 245 Water Street those unrivaled and undescribable pieces of machinery and art, the musical clocks and other curious pieces of mechanism and carving, such as were never exhibited in this country, among which are the following. Number 1, a representation of a Prussian grenadier on duty, probably marching. Number 2, a representation of a Prussian hussar on duty before the castle of Potsdam. A chimney sweeper and his boy on the top of a chimney crying, "Sweep, sweep," a most curious piece of machinery. Another, which is the representation of 3 figures, 2 figures striking the quarters, and a third the hours. Number 5 is a butcher slaying an ox. That sounds like a great little musical box there. I'll skip over that one. Number 7 is a canary bird that sings several tunes. And another, Mr. Hofmeister playing on an organ, and Messrs. Millers playing on 2 clarinets. And then why it says number 9, the same thing over again, like there's 2 mechanisms that do exactly the same thing, and they want to tell us about that. Another with a surprising imitation of a bullfinch and a goldfinch singing several tunes. Thus, this surpasses anything of the kind ever seen before. And it just goes on. They want to tell you about all their fun things. Here's an advertisement for toys in the Royal Gazette, New York, 1777. Christmas presents for the young folks who have an affection for the art military, consisting of horse, foot, and dragoons cast in metal in beautiful uniforms. Price 18 shillings a dozen. That's pretty expensive for toy soldiers, so these are probably big guys. There's camp furniture being sold, skates, a large quantity of various patterns with excellent leathers, may be had by the single pair or by the dozen, in case you want to have a whole hockey team, apparently, here. That's in the Independent Journal of 1786 in New York. And that's orange. We'll skip over the orange tag. And let me read one more. Christmas pieces, elegantly printed and plain. Also, large double royal prints, colored and plain, of engagement between Admiral Jervis and the Spanish fleet, the 14th of February, 1794, between Lord Howe and the French fleet on the 1st of June, 1794, with a variety of other prints, books, stationery, etc. for sale. John Harrison, number 3, Peck Slip. That's in the Weekly Museum. So there we go. Lots of fun stuff. Boy, there, every time I look in here, there's something cool. I can't stop to read it now, guys. So that's some fun advertising that we can see, sort of like their flyers or email flyers of the day. You know, you get your advertisements. I don't know about you, but it's time to thin down the email advertisements. Anyway, let's go on to some images.
Do you mind if we do a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
So we have a super chat from Deborah Scotland. She says, I'm living in Scotland now and I miss Thanksgiving. So this is like a touch of home for me.
Oh, thank you.
So.
Well, we could have sent you some turkey from today and some mashed potatoes and stuffing and everything. In fact, I've had 2 days of, I don't know if I'm going to survive it, Thanksgiving.
Somebody wanted the book name again.
This one?
I think it was that one.
There's a whole set of books printed in the early part of the 20th century. This one is 1948. This one's The Arts and Crafts in New York, 1777 through 1799. And there are these collections. There's a whole neo-colonial time period in the early 20th century when people got really interested in studying the 18th century, which is good. And one of the things they did was they went back through the newspapers and dug out advertisements of that time period having to deal with all sorts of arts and crafts and industries in that time period, and they just collected them in these modern books. So you don't have to kind of go digging through the period newspapers, which can be difficult to do, but to find these collections. And there are different collections for different areas. There's South Carolina, Pennsylvania, and this is part of the New York set.
Letitia Morgan wanted our advice, maybe it was ours, maybe it was the chat's, about subscribing to the YouTube channel or Townsends Plus, and which we would recommend.
Yeah, so different things for different folks. So there's Townsends Plus, so you can head on over there and check that out. That has most of what we do here on YouTube, plus some other kinds of content that we're working on, you know, like a specifically Ryan show and some specific episodes with Brandon, as well as readings from me and things like that that you don't find on YouTube. So that's a kind of a special streaming platform over there. There's subscribing on YouTube, which is, you know, you subscribe and you hit the bell notification, and in theory, YouTube will tell you about the videos when they come out. Boy, that system does not work like anybody thinks it should, but it's the way it works. And there used to be a way that YouTube would send you emails to tell you if a new video is out, and they don't do that anymore. And there's also membership on YouTube. So that's just basically a way for you to, you know, show up in the chat in a fun way, and it's a fun way to support us. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to support us. I don't know. I'm gonna talk about that.
Kind of different reasons to do different things. Somebody else was wondering, are there other 1700s living history groups like yours around the country, and any resources to find them?
There's a lot, and we don't have a group per se that's us, right? But there are lots of different 18th century living history groups that are going on in different areas that try to do different things. Some of them are specifically military. Some of them are specifically not military, civilian in that case. Or, you know, some of them for different time periods, specifically 7 Years' War or French and Indian War, Revolutionary War, 1812. So there's myriads of different sorts of groups in different areas, and there's not one good clearinghouse for everyone. Generally searching around on Facebook might help you. Maybe you could check out Smoke and Fire News. I'm not sure what other way to really recommend. It's kind of we in the past have tried to do some of that, but you being a clearinghouse for that information, but that's a job.
Somebody was wondering about clothes shopping in the time period, and if everything was custom, and how many pieces of clothing any particular, like an average person, might have.
There are some good on the second part of the question, the number of pieces somebody might have. So obviously it really depends on the amount of wealth in the household, but they're not going to have nearly as many pieces of clothing. I probably have 100 times more clothing than somebody in the 18th century did. I mean, literally. But somebody might have 3 shirts, a dozen shirts, and that's sort of their underwear of the time period, and then possibly just a couple of pair of pants or a couple of coats and waistcoats and like that. So the way to kind of get that information, I don't think I have that book here. There are a couple of different collections of wills and inventories. When people die, all their goods are inventoried, and those are kind of one of the best ways to see how much stuff a household has, how many pieces of clothing. Sometimes those things are really metered out for us, and we can see exactly what some people own, and then other times it's just like sundry clothing, 20 pounds. It's not helpful. But there are some that are very, very good at telling us exactly what somebody has. There was a beautiful collection of inventories done, and boy, that book is not at hand. Really impossible to find these days, but I don't know how. We'll probably touch on that topic again sometime. But yeah, not nearly as much stuff as we have today.
Let me do a few more super chats and then we can switch to the pictures. Max Harcool says, "Hooray for the Nutmeg Tavern!"
Yay! Thank you.
Yaji, glad you liked my post about the iron salamander. Any chance of those coming back? My friends who watched us use it were very interested. Happiest holiday season to the whole Townsends family.
Do you have an answer on that for me, Lauren?
I have not heard an update on the salamander.
Okay, so we've talked to one of our many blacksmiths about bringing back the salamander, so we're working on that.
And then Amy Smith sends in a super chat with no comment.
Thank you so much. Before we get into the images, we're not even there yet. And we can go late today. That's the nice part about today. If you guys want to keep hanging out, we might just keep going. But I wanted to get to the Patreon, PayPal, and Townsends Plus new people. So every week I try to get to the brand new people who help support us. Some folks support us over on Patreon with just a certain sort of pledged amount every month. So the brand new people there, Tim Reevely, Denise Spencer, Galexa, now let me try to get this, Yoshiro Kakuntani, I don't know if I got that one right, Kevin Keller, Ethan Schreckengost, and then we have some folks just give us kind of a one-shot thing on PayPal, and Christopher Ford is there on PayPal. Thank you, Christopher Ford. And brand new T Plus people, Sean M, George D, Carson B, and Edward K, brand new Townsends Plus folks. So maybe we can get to those slides.
All right.
Maybe we can do it. Here we go. Slide number 1. And this is early 19th century by the Outfits, and we're in front of a grocer's. So we're shopping for our holiday meal, right? And we've got foreground on the left, we've got little pottle baskets in a bigger basket with fruits in there. Maybe they are cherries or some other kind of little red fruit. I don't know what they are. And others, I don't know what's behind them, what those white things are, guys. I don't know what happened. We've got apples, we've got cauliflower, and I mean, that window is full. He's really showing off what what there is available. So if somebody's walking by, they can just like, oh, whoa, he's got that in stock. I'm going to go in and get those. We can see in the door. Now, this is fun when we're outside and we can see some of what's inside. We want to walk through that door and we want to see, are those potato bins? What's going on with that? We've got scales for weighing things. We got items that are hanging up in the store, and we just have no idea what he's working on there behind the counter. Or maybe he's still just trying to prep all those things, get them all to stand up just right, and hopefully some kid doesn't pull the the Jenga block out and have the whole thing, be destroyed. But and we've got this fun. So it looks like we have the lady on the left here is probably the shop mistress selling the pottle basket full of fruit. And yeah, you get the basket at the same time. There's a deal. She's selling the pottle basket of the fruit. The kid already wants to eat some. You can see that. And then everybody's going to go home and hopefully take their little pug dog with them. There you go. So we had the question in Super Chat about the butcher shop. And yeah, butcher shops, especially in the city. And this, we can tell, is happening. This is probably into 1820 or so. Actually, because A Christmas Carol is being written about a generation before like he's writing. It's right in this time period, maybe even a little bit earlier. But this is right in a Christmas Carol time period. We've got that kind of clothing. Notice these guys. Some of them still have on knee breeches, so they're fairly early. But those top hats still say 1820. So this is a real transitional time period for this kind of clothing, and we have sprigs of greenery in holly. And we also see the icicles from the ceiling, from the roof of the building here. So we know this is cold weather, and this is the time of year that meats would be hanging out anyway. If it was warmer, then they would be going bad in a hurry. So it's the time that you would go shopping for this sort of thing anyway. And we have the butcher shop going on the inside, and then we have all these great wares on the outside waiting for you to come by and take your choice, and off you go. And we have with the dog in the foreground. So I thought this was great. Lauren found this. So this is from that almost exactly the same time period, and it's a little shadow box setting. So somebody decided to make a 3D representation of that, almost that same image. And we've got notice the butcher blocks for cutting the meat. They're like a big log section on 3 legs. Those are real common, and we see there's 2 of these in this setting. They're very heavy and very sturdy for doing this sort of work. The classic butcher here, we can see the one on the right. He's got his knife sharpener that's hanging from his waist, because you're always working on making sure your knives are really good and sharp. So you have to have your knife sharpener just hanging right from your belt. I think that's pretty funny. Look, his toe fell off.
Oh no!
The man on the right.
So, a couple different comments.
Yeah.
Robert Cole said that in the Philippines, the meat markets there, if we went,
Yeah.
it looked just like
Yes,
this.
yes.
So, and then somebody else, Ford 5.0, said that he's a new fan and he learned how to make salt pork from you. So,
Great.
that was just
Great.
fun.
Another, so we were just looking at standard butchers that have mostly, they had beef and pork and maybe even something like mutton there. And here we have a poulterer's, and it looks like we've got a basket with eggs possibly in the foreground, and we have usually sort of conies and rabbits and hares are in the same sort of category. We have the birds hanging up there, and she's plucking one down. So it looks like some of these that are laying there are already plucked, and she's working on plucking them. And I'll bet the basket beside her is filled with feathers. This stuff doesn't go to waste. She's not going to throw these feathers away. She's going to sell them. So, they'll be used for any number of things, possibly stuffing your pillow or whatever. And here's another one of our poulterers. It's almost lockstep with the seemingly that earliest image of the grocers. So here we have the poulterer. We have lots of turkeys hanging up, some ducks, mallards and whatnot. We got rabbits. We've got eggs, the basket, just like we saw in that last image. That was a bit more of a sketch. And then check it out. It's sort of the cage that's part of the counter. There are guinea hens that are there waiting. And boy, those guineas, they probably have them there live so that somebody breaks in the shop, they go off like an alarm, and you're driven out of the building. You don't even need somebody there with to enforce your security. You've got guineas to do that for you. We get the foreground with the kids over on the side with the chickens, or even smaller. I don't know if they're bantams or just young chickens over there. Now, it's not just the kind of poultry that we would think of, chickens, turkeys, whatever, but check out, there's a stork over there, or some sort of spoonbilly animal. They're eating, it's like, if it's got feathers, yeah, we're gonna eat it. Today we don't eat little tiny birds, or songbirds. We don't eat storks and swans, but yeah, they're on the menu in the 18th century.
And it looks like they're rabbits, too.
Yeah, there are rabbits. They are not hares.
Oh, there they are.
Usually hares you can see just giant, but those are just sort of conies up there. Yeah.
So Aaron Howitt was making a comment about the back at the butcher's one, that they're end grain blocks, and that
Right.
they'll last generations
Exactly,
because they're
yes.
so sturdy.
Right.
Okay.
So this image is sort of a middle image here. No, it's not much about shopping, although she's selling books, but it's really about, there was a question about women smoking pipes in the 18th century. And yes, and it sometimes depends on the culture. So you're much more likely to see, say, Dutch women smoking, especially in this, the lower classes. But smoking women is not extraordinary at all, and but women might be more common to be snuff takers in the 18th century. So even Martha Washington enjoyed her snuff. Snuff was something that was popular with a lot of different people.
So can you go back to that slide? I believe that this person, she's 92.
92.
Yeah, and
still smoking away.
Right, and I think it gave her name. I think her name's Isabella. And I don't remember her last name, but it was like a particular portrait of her.
And look at the knitting she's doing. She's knitting in the round with three needles. Very interesting. This is Dutch, so we're moving back earlier. Because it's Dutch, the fashions are a little bit trickier to figure out, but this is probably pre-1750s, and this is a secondhand shop. So he's got just a random stuff all over the place. This is from the continent, so it was a little hard to read that. We had to do a little translation work on the description of this, but we see all sorts of things, all the way from down on the ground. We got sugar tongs, or actually just ember tongs there on the ground, playing cards. We got a rat trap. I don't know what's in front of the rat trap. Looks like somebody left their sandwich behind, but that's probably not what that is. Books, fiddle, paintings, hourglass. We got the spinning wheel. We've got the piece of luggage there. Those are usually wooden trunks with leather binding on them, a shovel, a gun, a sword. I mean, it's just like, could you have a more random selection? We've got bottles as we go up, a razor, we've got goblets, toys. The man has in his hand a set of glasses that are sort of Nuremberg glasses, the ones without temple pieces. Very, very common earlier than, say, 1750. And then, bed warmer, a broom, we've got dolls, we've got a wig. I don't know. Do you want to buy a used wig? I don't think so. A bird cage. And then children's toys hanging up. So lots and lots of things there. I love the kid behind the man who's bargaining there. He's like driving a driving a nail into the thing.
And the fountain behind it.
Yeah, and this is sort of a town fountain behind there. And the fountains, in the time period, apparently were more than just, there's almost like a public watering area because it looks like somebody's filling up a bucket from the fountain. So, again, yes?
Somebody was wondering where we found the secondhand shop picture. Later
Is that
today,
Rijksmuseum? Mm-hmm.
it is the Rijksmuseum, and later today I'll put a link in the description that'll have the details.
Yeah, and some of these later live streams, Lauren's been putting together the images for me, and she's done all the horrible, difficult work of putting together the references for each one of these slides and where they come from. So you can check out the links. She's trying to put these together in PDFs and make them available in the description section. And boy, you can thank her for that, because that is hard work. So let me see and I have all these notes on these. I haven't even been looking at these notes. I'm a bad person. You prepared all these notes, and I'm just blabbing through these guys. This one is a porter's shop. No, that was the last one. Whew, dummy me. This is an interior of a fabric shop, 1758. And yes, again, it's likely Dutch. And we get to see, a Dutch door on the person who's, the shop kind of has this kind of, a Dutch door is so nice, isn't it? It keeps the animals out, but it's welcoming. You see the top part of the door open, and you say, oh, well, the shop's open. I can go in, I can check it out. It doesn't have that sort of, we're closed, go away kind of feel to it. And we have all these fabrics that are displayed all the way up in these great big bolts that are way up high. Hopefully they don't fall down and kill people. We got the ladder to reach all those high things. And we can imagine of the amazing patterns and colors that we would see. Unfortunately, it's just a drawing, and we can't see all that. But I want to go to that fabric store and see what's in there. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, we don't have quite as much resolution as we want on this image, but imagine a market day in a big city in the 18th century. This is shopping like crazy. We have all sorts of green vegetables all the way down here on, right in the foreground. And this whole center area is where you're going to be finding fresh produce. And around the outside edges, we have other things going on. We see, I think, can we tell whether that image actually has a butcher shop thing hanging up there in the middle of the left side? I don't know.
It looks like they could be, but this was a poor quality image, so it's not quite as crisp.
Here's the town central, sort of pump thing in the middle of that. And we have these areas built into the middle of town so that this can happen. So maybe almost, most of the week, this is just a big green area for people to enjoy in the city, to relax. And then, this thing happens in the morning on a particular day of the week. And we have these temporary stalls that are set up around the outside edges and tents. So there might be eating areas, they might be selling things, and they might be entertainment. So all these things are happening at the, sort of at the same time.
People were imagining the noise level.
Oh gosh, can you imagine? And, musical things going on and whatnot. So here we're into, and that was The Hague, that last image at 1760. This is 1787, and this is sort of classic for this time period where we see the women in this clothing that's just enveloping them and smothering them. Gigantic hats. Obviously, this is caricature here, but only just so much, right? The reason why you can have it be caricature is because those fashions were like that, just maybe not this far, right? This is a milliner's shop, and again, giant hats on the wall, hats the size that could, smother half the people in the building. But people are trying these things out. We see these huge muffs, but this is, sort of high-end shopping. People trying out and seeing what the fanciest new fashions are like. And everybody wants to have the newest fashion, especially in this time period for the high-end folks.
and there's that little poodle.
Oh,
Yeah.
poor little guy. He's trying to get those ankles.
And the cat over here on the very, very far corner, which is unhappy.
This is very pretty.
We've seen this image before in earlier live streams. It's such a wonderful image. This is The Hague again, 1760s. And we have beautiful, brick-lined streets, cobblestone streets. This giant pump on one side. I believe that's what the handle there, that person's pulling on. I believe it probably pumps off to the other side, and we just can't see that. Beautiful wheelbarrow and green, produce being sold here in the center. And the shops open around sort of the, opening onto this center, large, wide street. And we can see lots of nice little produce and that sort of, semi, easy to take down stand there so that, when they leave, this stand breaks down and goes away. I'm trying to see what this is on the extreme left-hand side with that little sort of pseudo balcony that sticks out there. I don't know how to interpret that, so I won't interpret that. But we can see that they can go down into the basements right from this area too, which is really common early on. We don't see, basement entrances on the front of the street these days, but that's certainly what's happening in the time period, how they load things into, the store, into the basement right there from the street side.
And The Hague is in the Netherlands, correct? I'm not 100% sure,
Right.
but I feel like it's Dutch,
Exactly.
probably.
Yes. This, again, is from that same area of Europe. And there's a couple of different paintings or pictures that are similar to this one. I don't know that I've used this one before, but this is late 18th century, 1796. And we see a European city street. There is the shop there on the left-hand side. And can I tell what it is? Is it fabrics too? I believe it is. I think that's a fabric shop with the two women standing out in front. It's colorful, whatever it is, and it's fabrics and other things. And we can, the other image is very similar to this, where we have this passageway through and into another street, and we can see more shops. And boy, we just want to walk down that street and see what's going on. Get the dogs barking and travelers going through, and also street sellers. So things are happening both in the shops, and then we might have produce. Here we've got produce being sold in a sort of a stationary setting, and then we have people walking and selling things in the 18th century. So probably those boys are walking and selling something. There's the man with the, I don't know what, cauliflower on his head, I don't know, and the other man who's walking and selling items. So we did these sellers of items just a live stream or two ago. So they're walking and selling all sorts of really, really interesting things that we wouldn't imagine people would be walking and selling. And we've got some of these same folks here. And then just regular buyers and sellers as they're walking around town. The city street image here, again, late 18th century or right at 1800. And this is Rowlandson. He's got a very particular style. This is actually one of his that's kind of kept within bounds. Usually he gets a little bit more caricaturish. But so we've got, a city setting and people shopping. We can see all these sort of storefronts here up and down the street. And odd things going on that don't happen in our city streets, someone herding pigs down the street, or a pen set up in the middle of the street. And, maybe they have calves or other kinds of animals that they're selling in a pen in the street right here. And imagine the sound. We have a military band coming in from the extreme right-hand side. We can just see the beginning of that. And then we have various sets of people sort of milling about. Even in this, on the extreme left-hand side, it looks like somebody's selling drinks right out there on the street. It's like probably part of that, an inn or a tavern or whatever, and they've got a table set out and they're serving things out in the street. People, you can buy a horse, you could buy a pig, you can, go to the clothing shop, you can do whatever you need to do.
Oh, yeah. That sounds nice.
So we think of shops and stores, and we go into a big store and we can walk for an hour up and down the aisles, and there's goods galore. This is a well-stocked bookstore of the 18th century. Yeah, look, he's got 2 whole shelves of books. He's selling books, but this is also where he lives. So, he's got his own little fireplace, and maybe he, cooks things. I doubt it. He probably has his meals brought in, and he has a bed right here in the wall, and we might even see a closet behind us or something like that where he keeps his clothes. And he has people in, and people buy books from him. So this could be the lower floor of a house. And, people rent out the lower floor for commercial purposes and then live in the upper floors. Maybe they even bring food down to him. And he's got, various books to sell. And I don't know why he's got these strange little pictures on the wall. It looks like a couple memento mori kind of pictures, and maybe there's a mirror there. But an interesting thing. You want to know what sort of books he has on his shelves. And you can see the different sizes of books there. And really those different sizes have a lot to do with, you might have different editions and they cost more or less by how big the edition is printed.
And you can see next to the chair where is that his bed there?
Yes, yeah, that's his little bed built into the wall there. This is Rollinson again. This is Covent Garden Market, and we've got these are like landscaping plants on the one side here, and this is likely into 1710. This is 1795 to 1710. I'd probably say it's later on in that time frame. And here Rollinson's, his people are kind of roundy. And thick-lined, but I really enjoy. He's a very prolific artist of this time period, and we can see some kind of shoppy things, and we can see this sort of open air landscaping plant market. Now this image, let me look at this one. This is the vegetable seller. It looks like a French or a Dutch artist, and it says apparently the artist's lifetime is from 1756 to 1816, and I'm not sure where I would lock this in at. It could be anywhere in that later quarter, 1790 to 1810, because it's kind of sort of vague here. But selling vegetables, and we have the onions braided up there on the wall, and just a really interesting engraving style here, where the lines don't go where you expect them to go, especially in the face. A lot of times they're just hatch marked, but this one's trying to convey something a little different. What did you pick this one out for, Lauren? What did you think about this one?
It was the transaction where you actually saw the money changing hands. That's why.
Yes, not happening so often.
Yeah, you didn't actually see it portrayed, so
Right.
that was interesting.
Yeah, so here we go. This is the High Street, Edinburgh, 1818. And with obviously the Scottish feel to it. We have lots of checked fabrics and all over. Beautiful city, and the market going on here, and the fabrics going on, the plaids being sold, and we have a little different feel to the architecture than some of the other images here. So these kind of splashes of color, which I think is kind of fun in an image like this. What did you think of this one, Lauren?
I just really loved the colors.
Yeah.
I like that blue that's, highlighting.
Right.
And it's just, you don't see a lot of Scottish ones
No.
that are so
Right.
clearly Scottish, because there's
Right.
just plaid littered everywhere, and everybody looks like they're having a ton of fun out here
Yeah.
in this open market. So.
Yeah, even there's the little backpack kind of thing going on there. It's a little more of impressionistic style, so it's not kind of locked in as much. It's kind of like we're looking through a haze at this one. But I enjoy the feel of this one. I think that was a fun image.
Yeah, I think that's the last one.
Yeah, that's it. We did it. Wow.
All right, you ready for some questions?
Yeah, I am ready for some questions.
All right, let's see if I can get back to the
Hopefully, I
beginning.
still got some tea left here.
Okay.
My candle went out.
Okay. Somebody was asking about advertising, and then somebody else was saying maybe we could do a stream on advertising. So that sounded like fun, and we might just make it its whole stream, because I bet that would be easy to do. And somebody was wondering if the old newspapers were available digitally.
There is a site called newspapers.com, I think. I don't know. You can subscribe to it. You can even get some, sort of their free trial. And they have newspapers going back to 1607. And in theory, they're searchable, but, the OCR, the optical character recognition, doesn't do that great on 18th century newspapers. So you have to kind of just sort of browse around and do your best. I've got an 18th century newspaper down in my office that I brought up in the past to show folks on the live stream, and of course, these sort of printed versions of them. So there are different ones, different ways available for searching in newspapers of the time period.
Somebody, I'm thinking it might have been Sue, but I could be wrong about that, was wondering, would most gifts have been handmade?
Well, in a sense that everything is kind of handmade in the 18th century, but I don't know that I would say, I guess the sense that, we say handmade today would be I make it for someone else, right? So it's like, I want to give a gift to, my wife, and then I will make it. And in that sense, I don't know. I think it really depends on the situation. Gift giving is kind of a different idea in the 18th century than what we have today, and not necessarily so commercialized. So we could definitely take that a question and extrapolate it and say it was much more personal and much less commercialized.
A couple of super chats. Deborah BR says, I have a recipe for fruitcake that dates back to the late 1600s. It says to age it up to 10 years. Any info on the sale of aged fruitcakes?
No, I don't know about that off the top of my head. If we went searching for some things, we might be able to find them, even in places like that, or we would dig through that. Although the arts and crafts don't have as much of the food sorts of things in it than you might want.
Finley Hills says that Google Books has a selection of old newspapers available, although they're mainly from the Victorian era,
Right.
so a little bit later. But still, I'm sure they're very fun to look at. Somebody was wondering if we had ever run across any children's artwork or doodles from the time period. I haven't. That said that.
Right. We find artwork for children, penny books and little illustrations for children, primers and whatnot. But artwork done by children, that I don't know of, because that would, generally that sort of thing isn't published, so it would be just kind of one-off, and art, is that going to survive? I don't know of any.
Somebody was wondering if we knew anything about why the hats with the buckles were so linked to Thanksgiving. And I've never run across a reason why that particular hat with the buckle was.
I don't know how to answer that immediately.
I always thought of it as the Pilgrims bringing it over.
I don't think it was actually their hat style. I think it's something that got attached to it later.
Well, specifically the idea of the belts and the little buckle thing is definitely a 1790 kind of thing, and you would even see ones that had multiple, like little belts and buckles. It's like, why your hat needs a buckle? I
fancy.
don't know, but
Somebody was wondering if the shopkeepers would ring bells like the bread the bakers did when the bread was hot.
They might if there was a timely thing to it, but I wouldn't see why there would need to be that if there wasn't a time issue, right? So the baker's ringing the bell because the bread's hot now, or the new load has just come in. So there might be situations where a particular seller of goods has the goods come in and then you want to get rid of them. But I think most of the other ones are just open when they're open. They might tell people, hey, I'm open today, but more than likely they just have normal hours and people would go and see them. And even if there weren't your hours, many people live over their shop. And even if the shop is closed, you could, like throw a rock at his window and say, hey, sand at his window, and you don't want to break it. Hey, I want to buy something, and they would come down and open their shop for you.
Somebody was making the point about for the children's art that samplers were, and they're often dated about how old the kids were, and they are usually done by
There you
young
go.
kids.
Yeah, that's the something that's left behind, unlike paper art. So samplers, stitching samplers, perfect, good suggestion.
Midwest Minuteman said he made a cranberry tart, and it turned out great. So
Great.
Another dish to add to the Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I saw someone said in the comment section that they made the pumpkin pie, but it wasn't sweet enough for them.
Oh, well.
And they threw it out. And I'm thinking, well, don't throw it out. You make sweetened, whipped cream and you put it on top. Make it as sweet as you want.
Fix anything. Somebody was wondering about snacks at the open markets, whether they would have had it. And
they've got little street food items that are available. And they, depending on where you're at, there might be different things. Maybe they're like, pig's feet or something, or warmed up gingerbread, which is a common street food. Even something like fried oysters as a street food. Yeah, they had some strange little street food, snacky kind of things that you would have available, pretzel-y kind of things, bread, little items.
A couple more super chats. Keltoid5 just got here. Of course, that was a long time ago. Just got here. Cheers to all. And then John Talley again. Was milk and butter sold at shops, and was that possible without refrigeration?
So you're going to have shops that do dairy kind of things sometimes, but I think a lot of usually like for markets, that's coming in as cheese. So there'll be, cheese coming into the market, but it's harder to bring something like milk in. And that means that people are more likely just going to know the local, place where they get their dairy things. And maybe that's delivered to them. Maybe they go and pick that up. So that's probably just how that's happening. Not necessarily a shop, but somebody who you just go to their dairy, and go and get those things or have them brought to you.
Diane Norcus says, made the pumpkin pie using the proper amount of molasses, and it was great, not too sweet.
Well,
So, turned out great.
okay.
Would alcohol be sold at the marketplace, or was that reserved for the taverns?
So we had this street seller of, we were talking about selling this in the street, the gingerbread and the snacks and all kinds of weird little things like that. Well, there were people that went around and sold alcoholic beverages like with a tank on their back and you've got a little cupful. So yeah, that's happening with street sellers or some of those little stalls we saw on that one. They might be, just a little temporary stall that sells alcoholic beverages. It depends on the legality of that within that culture, and that changes all the time. So there were times in the 18th century when that was in, say, England, where that was an okay thing. And then there were times when they clamped down on that. They said, no, that is not working out for us as a society. We're not going to have that anymore. That's a thing that's in flux throughout our time period.
Somebody was wondering if we were planning on doing any more videos with Michael Twitty, because they thought those are some of our best. So.
We haven't spoken with Michael Twitty in a while, but there's certainly, if there's an opportunity to do that, we would do that.
Somebody was wondering, going back to the, I think it was John Talley who's originally asked about the meat and the refrigeration.
Right.
And whether they just let it out to age, and whether they only sold it that way during the cold winter months?
Yeah, so you're going to be working with what is happening with that. So a butcher's going to know. It's like, in this weather, this is good for this amount of time. And it's getting cold, we can put these things out, we can hold on to them. If the meat starts to, it's like, well, this isn't going to sell within this time period, then we'll salt it down. We'll store this away, we'll preserve this, or we'll sell it quickly, or it's okay, we went too long, this is dog food and cat food now. I mean, those things are happening. We even see the street sellers selling cat and dog food. What is it? Why is it cat and dog food? Is it different parts of the animal that nobody wants? Is it out of age? We can guess all those sorts of things. And we could tell even from that one image, it's like it's cold out. There's ice, there, it's 30 to 40 degrees. These meats are actually, they're going to age. Good things are going to happen, in this. We want them to get more tender with age or whatever. They're definitely having times when the meat's got to be eaten up right away if it gets too warm, or we're just plain not going to butcher this time of year because, we wouldn't be able to process it fast enough. So they're thinking about that. They're very, very seasonal in how those things work out.
Okay, so somebody was asking if you were familiar with the Diaries of Thomas Turner from 1754 to 1765, detailed accounts of a shopkeeper, something about church records. It was a while back, so
yeah, Turner. I think his book is on my nightstand. There's a couple of different sort of diaries of folks who are shopkeepers. One of them, I don't think it's Turner. One of them dealt in stockings, and he sold stockings. So there are some interesting, not a ton of them, but there are some very, very interesting journals of people in the time period. And many times some of these journals are just like the day book of the business, and you can see sort of transactions going on. And then other times they're more diary. This thing happened to me, that thing happened to me, or I'm trying to do this sort of deal. A lot to be gleaned from that. Sometimes you kind of have to read in between the lines. There's some very, very interesting information in some of those.
And somebody was wondering if many libraries and museums had digitized their collections. And of the ones that have, thank you.
More and more of that is going on. When we're working now with doing more of the live streams with these images, and a lot of the museums are finally opening up their collections to make them open to use, download images. We're very grateful for that. I think copyright and some of those things are really, really good. But when they want to clamp down on that for a 200-year-old image, it's kind of pretty crazy. So some of the museums are really good about that, and other ones are still very closed-handed about how they open up their rights to some of the images they have. But a lot more of these images are being digitized, and books are being digitized, and just so many wonderful things out there. And I'm going to be working on some more of those kinds of projects for the channel and for some of the other outlets like Townsends Plus, and maybe even some of the blogs. I've got some ideas about some of that material and kind of bringing it, talking about it, exposing it.
Somebody was wondering about ice boxes, whether we'd run across common mentions or how common they might have been in that time period.
Well, it's certainly something that's going on as we move into, well, I mean, ice boxes in 20th century, right? But and into the 19th century, and cellars of ice and cutting ice in the 19th century, and that really kind of works back into the 18th century, and they have ice houses and things. It's just kind of, there's less of it as we go back further and further, and it's a little harder to find the specific references. We know they had an ice house at Mount Vernon, a place to store ice, in the late 18th century, but I don't know how common it was for other folks.
Ice boxes. Oh, somebody was wondering about the plans for any Nutmeg Tavern cookbook.
Funny you should ask. We're working on a couple of different cookbook ideas, and I've got the kind of thing I want to do, and Ryan's got an idea for something, so we'll see. Michael Dragoo's working on a cookbook that I can't wait to see too. So we'll see. There are a couple of different cookbook ideas that are in the works, and we'll see what happens.
All right. I think that kind of catches
Okay.
it. Oh, there was a super chat. Hold on just a second.
Sure.
Let me get updated. I got to refresh it. Hold on. It was Kyle Dunbar. He just sent in a donation.
Oh,
without
thank
a
you,
comment,
Kyle.
so.
I'll read just a couple more quick advertisements, and maybe we'll just get one or two more little things, and then we'll let you guys go. So let me see here what I can find. Yes, there was that one. That was the little metal people. And then we had the skates. Very good. What was this orange tag? Oh, boy. Boy, no. Well, okay. So, you want to get something for... it's like buying your wife the vacuum cleaner. It's like, here, look, honey, I got you a present. The patented conjurer. Being a very useful and valuable machine is recommended to the public as a cheaper and more expeditious way of cooking and boiling water than any before invented. It is particularly convenient for the masters of vessels, as it will enable them to cook in the cabin when the weather will not permit them on deck. It's a great savings of fuel, making it an object to those families and persons who wish to less the expense of that necessary and costly article. For while for convenient, it is useful to all as a kettle of water for tea, and tea may be boiled in 6 minutes with a sheet of paper, a few shavings, and any combustible. It will cook a steak very nicely in 3 minutes. Also veal cutlets, mutton chops, fricassee, hashed meats of any kind, boiled eggs, etc. It's very convenient for gentlemen in chambers, as it quite precludes the necessity of lighting a fire in the chimney. It is likewise very convenient on fishing parties, as fish may be boiled immediately as they are taken out of the water in a vessel without a fireplace or caboose. Come and see The Conjurer. It is perfectly innocent and harmless. I don't know if you got to sell it like that. Won't explode, we promise. Just received from the maker and for sale by Bailey and Bogart. Number 106 Front Street, 6 doors west of the Coffee House Slip. That's from 1797. That's like, we promise this won't explode too often. That was the printed piece. A lady's hat. So remember the hat, the milliner shop. This one has got me. Okay, we're in the milliner shop. This one was lost. A lady's hat lost last Sunday evening. Lady's light blue beaver hat with dark green spots. A blue feather and band with 4 small buckles. Whoever has found the same will leave it at number 50 Wall Street, shall be handsomely rewarded. This is 1793. It's like, what? A blue hat, a light blue hat with dark green spots and 3 buckles. Yes. Oh gosh, I'll bet that was quite the thing. Okay, so maybe we want to go we're on a shopping trip, but we want a little bit of entertainment. Wax speaking figure, etc. The great secret divulged and exposed. The beautiful wax figure, which has long been exhibited both in Europe and America as a speaking figure and has caused so much conjecture respecting its principle of deception, is now suspended in a beautiful temple in the museum. The principle, which is truly philosophical, may be discovered by two persons who can hold a conversation through the figure by a whisper. The museum must be perfectly free from noise at the time the communication is made. Amongst the many late additions to the museum is an original portrait and very striking likeness of the late Governor Clinton, painted by Mr. Wright. A collection of mechanic automata, vis-a-vis 1, a cannon beating down the walls of a castle. 2, 6 stonecutters and 4 blacksmiths at work. 3, a pantomime, harlequin, and punch. 4, sportsmen shooting a duck off a rock. 5, Chinese shoemakers. I don't know how they're different than regular shoemakers. 6, a jealous miller and his wife. Number 7, a farmyard, mill and miller and his wife. Number 8, a dance by 2 soldiers and their girls to the beat of a drum under a cherry tree. 9, several Chinese tumblers, all of which imitate life on mechanical principles. Several warranted electrical machines, sounds dangerous, with complete medical apparatus for sale. It's like, okay. So there's a lot of waxworks in here. Apparently they were popular in the late 18th century. So, advertisements. Come and get the conjurer. We promise it won't explode. Cooks things fast.
So somebody was wondering if our phone lines were open right now. And
it is now after 5.
it is. So you want to tell them what our regular hours are for phone?
Our regular hours during the week, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 on the telephone number at 1-800-338-1665.
And we're on Eastern time.
Yes, we're on Eastern time. So, you can get a hold of us on the telephone, and Lauren and Angelina can help you on the phone if you can manage to get through to them. And so there you go.
And then somebody was wondering how you picked the name Nutmeg Tavern.
So we were thinking about we did live streams in a sort of a blank set for a while, and we thought, well, it'd really be fun to do it in a sort of some other kind of atmosphere, a new set, and we came up with the tavern. And of course, since we do nutmeg, I said, why don't we call it the Nutmeg Tavern? And so that's where the name comes from, because nutmeg is the 18th century spice of choice, and we're spicy. Well, are we ready?
I think so.
Okay.
I think we're all caught up on Super Chat.
It has been a tremendous time. We had the pre-show, and then we had the long shopping episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed being in the Nutmeg Tavern today. I know I have enjoyed being in the Nutmeg Tavern. It's always fun. I mean, this was a little bit more relaxed, and we had some great fun images and some readings and lots of questions. So really enjoy getting together with you folks and being able to spend time in this kind of way. It's a completely different way of interacting with everybody on YouTube. I'm glad that YouTube gives us the ability to do these live streams. Oh, and that reminds me, Townsends Plus, folks, we have the ability to do live events on Townsends Plus, and I will be experimenting with that as soon as next week. So if you're on Townsends Plus and you get some weird notification like something live, blah, 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 Townsends Plus, well, I don't know, try it out. I'll be experimenting, seeing how the system works, seeing how we can work with our equipment and all that good stuff. So who knows what craziness will happen on Townsends Plus next week with live events. But back to where we are at here in the Nutmeg Tavern. Yes.
There's a super chat. Robert Cole says, the conjurer was Kent Rollins' great-grandmother of Big Bertha.
Oh, there you go. More than likely. Although Big Bertha apparently gets up to like 5 billion degrees with a whole bunch of firewood and just didn't use that much. So hopefully it was much safer than Kent Rollins' cook stove. Anyway, again, always have a blast here in the Nutmeg Tavern. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Thank you for your support. We got Townsends Plus people, Patreon people. We got Super Chat people. We've got people that are subscribers or even members of the YouTube channel, which is a different way of supporting. I don't know what to tell you guys about all these crazy ways you can help us out, but I want to thank you all for your tremendous support. Even if you just watch the videos and you chat a little bit, even that is tremendous support. Hey, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. And I hope you have a tremendous weekend. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.